everyone. It's my absolute privilege this morning to introduce you to our speaker today, Momin Mohamed, and to chair this event. For those of you that don't know me, and I expect it's the majority of you, I am Delith James, and having practiced as a barrister in London many years ago now in criminal and family law, I moved to UWE in 1997 and have been here ever since, largely teaching on the barrister and solicitor programmes. Today, I'm chairing this event in my capacity as Deputy Head of the Law School. Momin will present for about 15 minutes shortly, and you will have the opportunity to submit questions via the platform, and the event will be recorded and uploaded onto the Inspire Me web pages in about a week's time. So if I could turn then to introduce Momin to you all. As I said, it's my absolute privilege to do so today. Momin Mohamed, an activist and anti-FGM campaigner. Momin has spent the last 7 years standing up against injustice and tackling cultural taboos. At 17, Momin became an outreach worker at Integrate UK, training a team of young activists who went on to run peer education workshops reaching 10,000 people. Momin has spoken out about the patriarchal attitudes of those around him, really bravely addressing issues like violence against women and challenging gender and racial inequality, and creating a viral anti-FGM music video. Over the years, Momin has taken on increasingly challenging roles and has progressed to lead outrage worker, training and supporting young people to deliver a wide range of peer education workshops. And Momin also personally delivers training to frontline professionals, including nurses, doctors and lawyers. To date, Momin has provided consultation to 2 Prime Ministers, participated in meetings at Home Office, and was a key member of the European Radicalisation Awareness Network. And he did much of this before he was 17 years of age. Momin studied law at UWE Bristol, further pursuing his interest in social justice, and during his undergraduate studies he founded UWE's Bristol Diversity in Law Committee and the Bristol Homelessness Project 2018, distributing clothes from over 150 respondents to help the homeless and Shelter UK. Now that Momin has just completed a master's degree, is continuing to make a difference to communities by advising organisations such as the United Nations, the Home Office and the Swedish government, along with being the proud recipient of the Diana Award 2021 and being named as the 4th top Black student in the UK. I am delighted to introduce you to Momin, and I will now hand over to him for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Delith, for that. So a little bit about me. So as always, my name is Momin. I'm 25, from Bristol. My heritage is I come from a Sudanese background. So growing up, whilst I grew up in the UK, I've always kept, home ties, and I've always been strong to my culture and to my heritage. I completed my law degree at UWE from 2015 to 2018, and I went on to study my LPC combined with the Masters in BPP University in 2019. So I recently graduated from that last year, it was 2020, from my LPC, which I know many of you kind of aspire to become a lawyer. So now I'm an aspiring lawyer after completing my LPC. But most of the time, whilst I'm not doing kind of my law stuff, I am an activist campaigning against many different issues, namely FGM, violence against women and girls, radicalization, and racism. So today I'm going to speak to you a little bit about my journey, and kind of how I got to be where I am today, and kind of turning your passion into a career, and what kind of your typical career is like. So I'll go next and I'll speak to you a little bit about the charity that I work with first, before I get into my journey, just as I think it's important just to highlight what the charity entails, what the charity is about, and kind of how it came into fruition. So the charity is called Integrate UK. So we've been around since 2013. It used to be called Integrate Bristol, and we started off as maybe kind of a few outreach workers. And yeah, so we started off a few outreach workers in Bristol, and it kind of took on from there. If I just move on to the next slide, please. So yeah, so when we started off, it was a teacher at City Academy Bristol, who's now one of our directors. Her name is Lisa Zimmerman, and she worked at City Academy, and she's seen a few cases where girls were coming back from summer holiday, and they would come back with a completely different demeanor, completely different attitude, and just you can really notice a change from how they was pre-summer holiday to how they are post-summer holiday. So upon conversations and upon looking into it more, she discovered that a lot of the people who were coming back from summer holiday had actually had FGM performed on them in various different countries abroad. So then we started the charity, and then a few of us started campaigning against FGM, and we would make stuff like music videos, educational resources, short films. So at that point, we kind of utilize any resources that we may have, whether it may be videographers in the group, whether it may be actors, actresses, singers. So we really started off with not much at all, but we made it into something that's quite empowering and quite catchy, so we can raise awareness of this issue that was quite pressing at the time. So with Integrate UK, as the slide says, we deliver peer education around female genital mutilation, which is FGM. And so that's how we started out, with just focusing on FGM. And that took off as better than we ever could expect. And we started noticing other issues that were very much prevalent in today's society, and especially the societies that we come from. I mean, coming from a Sudanese background, Sudan is one of the highest countries with a percentage that performs FGM. And so there was a few of us that were Sudanese, Somali, a few of us who were African, who noticed these social issues that are quite prevalent in today's community. And whilst you would think it was just prevalent in the communities in those chosen countries, we found that it was quite prevalent in the UK as well, and it was done in a conspiracy type of way. So then we moved on to speak about various other issues, such as grooming for child sexual exploitation, radicalization, and gang culture. Then we looked into gender-based violence and abuse, sexual harassment, gender stereotyping and gender inequality, honor-based violence and abuse, racism, Islamophobia, right-wing extremism, and lately we've done FGM safeguarding for frontline professionals. So what we would do in that is we would go to frontline professionals such as doctors, nurses, lawyers, and we would give them training on how to spot signs of FGM. And it was very much rewarding especially when I first started off as an outreach worker, because I'm essentially training lawyers, and that's the position that I want to be in the future, since I'm an aspiring lawyer. And yeah, so it really did start off just with a few of us, and it did take off. So we had different consultations with the government, and then FGM became compulsory for PSHE lessons. So spreading the word on FGM really made us kind of raring to go in other issues. And once we started noticing other social injustices, I always say like we couldn't be stopped at that point, because like once you see an injustice happening and once you gain knowledge on that injustice, your passion just keeps on growing and growing. So if so now I'll speak about my journey into kind of where I am today. So I went to school in Bristol, and I went to a predominantly white, I would say a mixture of working class and middle class school. And immediately when I was at the school, whilst I had kind of my group of friends and kind of a group of teachers who I really bonded with, you can notice the difference, and me being a Black African male in a predominantly white school. And you would notice small little kind of microaggressions that maybe when I was in school I would kind of gloss over. But later on down the line, then when I realized that these are actually microaggressions, I decided to do something about it. So when I was in sixth form, I went to sixth form again in Bristol. And if you think that my school was predominantly white male, what I was delving into when I went to my sixth form was a completely different realm. Like it was a lot worse than secondary school. So I decided to join the youth council in sixth form, and decided to kind of make some changes to increase diversity and inclusion. And I feel like that's where it really started for me. I wasn't really seeing many people of color there. I wasn't really seeing many people of ethnic, like even ethnically wise. So it was just a case of wanting to make the sixth form more inclusive, so people don't have to go through what I went through. And I joined the youth council in year 13, and I always say to myself I should have joined in year 12, because I could have made a bit more of an impact rather than a year. But I mean, you can start whenever you start. So my passion from there just grew, and we were able to make a lot of changes. So when I went into university, when I went into UWE, I joined the Law Society, and I saw that there wasn't a kind of diversity subcommittee at all. So I decided to look into making a diversity in law subcommittee, wherein we would bring in panel speakers, we would make networking events, and really just kind of lobby with UWE in general, just to make kind of the prospect of going into law that little bit easier for people of color, for people with disabilities, and for women. The legal industry is heavily dominated by white males, and if you look at statistics, it quite clearly shows that. So we decided to center a few events in the academic year around. So the first event was Women in Law. So we got some women speakers, um, female speakers, sorry, from law firms, and we got them to speak about their journey, their pitfalls, and any words of wisdom that they may have. And we done kind of like a short Q&A afterwards, which was very popular, I'd say, and many women after said that they did feel empowered after the talk. And then our second event was LGBTQ in the legal industry as well, and how to make the industry a lot more accessible for those who identify within that community. And the last event was BAME in law, which was it was widely what's the word credited, and I think that was our best event, because all people from all walks of life came in there. Black and minority ethnic is quite an ambiguous term, So we got a lot of people there. We got quite a good range of speakers as well. And that was quite good because people got to network with many different lawyers and partners at law firms that they might have not got the chance to in the past. So what I wanted to speak about really is just turning your passion, um, whatever that may be, into a career. So as I said, I come from a Sudanese background, and I started noticing injustices around my home country in Sudan when I was of young age, really. So when I would go back for summer holidays or for a couple of weeks, society in Sudan and society in the UK are completely different realms. And it's seen as such an okay to do certain things in Sudan, and even such as FGM, it was seen as such an okay thing. Violence against women and girls. I mean, not to even bash the country, so to speak, but I started seeing these injustices happen, and these women really like at the forefront of it, who were either in abusive relationships or really feel like they didn't have a voice. And then I remember thinking, like, why is this happening? Like, I go to the UK and nothing of the sort is happening. But then when I go back home, this is happening. But then when I delve deeper in the UK, those cultures and those attitudes to women are still happening in today's society, especially in different communities. So then I started campaigning against violence against women and girls, and many different social injustices, and I started centering it around certain communities, because I really wanted to kind of start at home, and not in my household, but start in my community. And I seen it as such a patriarchal issue and such a male dominated issue, that these men and these kind of male figures that everyone looks up to, both women and men, are kind of creating this narrative that this is how society should be, that women should be second-class citizens. And I was thinking to myself that that's definitely not right. I mean, women are the backbones of our society. I mean, for example, my mother, like, she's the person who I deem the highest kind of in my life. So why are they being treated like this? So when I started campaigning against those issues, got, I would say, widely not discredited, but kind of I wasn't encouraged at all by the community. People were looking down on what I was doing, and it got to a point where even some people in my household would be like, "Oh, is it worth it? Is it worth you getting all this backlash for these issues? Can you really make a change?" And it was quite hard at the start, because if your own members of your own household are trying to kind of tell you to quit, then it gets to a point where it's a little bit it gets to a point where it's a bit hard. But I persevered through those issues, because I was thinking, if it's not me as a man, as a Black African man, speaking about these issues, then who is going to? So whatever that you might be passionate about, whatever that you might be kind of wanting to gain an interest in, I would say do your research, because knowledge kind of breeds passion. The more I got interested in FGM and finding out about FGM practices. I mean, I didn't know what FGM was really before Integrate UK. So finding out more and more about it, looking at videos, looking at case studies, I mean, my passion just grew more and more, because these are kind of marginalized women in today's society, where we're meant to protect them as human beings at the end of the day. And if men are putting this narrative forward, then it's up to us as men to kind of dismantle that narrative. So I would say, yeah, definitely go into your passion. Activism, everyone thinks that activism isn't your typical career because it might not bring you money. But I mean, we're moving towards that type of society nowadays, where activism can become an occupation. You can work with charities, you can work with NGOs whilst making a difference in today's life. And I'm an aspiring lawyer, but something that I always hold close to my heart is activism. So whatever job that I may do, to me, activism always comes hand in hand with that job. And I would never let it interfere kind of my day job, but I would always make time for it. So this slide with Integrate UK is just a few stuff about what we've done. So the right-hand corner is Michael Gove, and he was Education Secretary. and then he wrote to all schools and he backed our anti-FGM fight. The top left-hand corner is a panel with Emma Watson and Nazra Ayub, who's one of our trustees. So it was quite a good event, and she actually she got us some funding, and she's heavily supported our projects over the years. So if I just go to the next slide. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I'd just like to thank you all for joining me today. If you guys want to check out a little bit more about Integrate, the social media handles are there. On Twitter is @_Integrate UK, and on Facebook it's Integrate UK. We always have opportunities. We always have opportunities for people to join as outreach workers, to join as volunteers. And my handle is, so my name is Momin Mohamed, so that's on my LinkedIn. And then my Instagram handle is _Momin14, where I post about some of the activist work that I do and some of the cool projects that I'm involved in and that sometimes I need involvement in. So give me a follow if you're interested in what I do and if you're looking for any opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Momin. It's the audience's opportunity now to ask some questions. So if you'd like to pop your questions into the box, then can read them out to ask Momin. So we've got, we did have a question. It seems to have, thank you. Momin, why do you think it's so important to see diversity in law represented at university?
I think it's imperative that diversity in law is represented in university. Most law students on statistics actually don't go into law afterwards, and I believe, so my personal opinion is because of those barriers that a lot of people face when getting into the legal industry. I mean, we all know, especially if you study law, that there's only a few training contracts that a firm hands out year by year. And if you look into most law firms, especially Magic Circle law firms, you see that it's predominantly white males at the top of their rank, white males at partners, white males as associates, and even as trainees. So it can be really a daunting industry to get into as a black male, as even just a female, really. So I feel like if diversity is addressed in university, and even if we feel a sense of representation in university, that will make that aspect of making the transition from university life into the legal life a little less daunting and a little bit more welcoming. So I know UE is quite representative, and it's working on towards becoming more representative as well. But I believe with UE and with most universities, there's a long way to go, and there's a long way that we could go to make students feel a lot more represented in university, and to give them really the tools to feel welcomed and appreciated in the legal industry, because as we all know, it is quite a cutthroat industry. And whilst a law degree can kind of get you to so many places, I know of so many students who go into a law degree wanting to actually become lawyers, but just the prospect afterwards and how hard it is to actually get a training contract to become a lawyer, and even once you get a training contract, are you going to feel represented at the firm? Are you going to feel appreciated? So I know it is quite a as I said, cutthroat industry. So I feel like if we start from early, start from university, even start from sixth form, to just make law and the legal industry a lot more representative, I think it will go down very well. And I think whilst it does impact universities, I think it does start with law firms as well, because that's the end role which someone wants to get into. So I do think law firms need to work with universities a little bit more into making that gap a little bit more accessible. Sorry, I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we've got a question here about family members. How did you convince family members that what you were doing was worthwhile?
So it was quite lengthy conversations over quite a long period of time, really. As I said before, and it's factual knowledge, so I have no I can easily say it. Sudan is one of the highest countries with the highest percentage of FGM, and everyone in the Sudanese community, not everyone, but most people in the Sudanese community actually see FGM as a norm. So once looking into it and once really speaking to people who have had FGM done and looking at case studies, I was just thinking that this is such an injustice, and the different mental complications, physical complications after FGM. I mean, you can even have complications in childbirth after, and you'd see women go and they get FGM performed on them, and then they come back and they're a totally different person. They're like a shell of a person. So I could never co-sign something like that. And a lot of people would say it's just Sudan's a Islamic country. A lot of people would say it's an Islamic principle. When it isn't, there's nowhere in scriptures that it says that FGM is okay to be performed on a woman. It's largely a cultural issue, and FGM predates religion. So how can it be part of Islam if it predates religion? So I immediately knew it was a cultural thing, and a lot of wider family members were kind of all for FGM, and even people in my household were of that nature. So it was pretty difficult to kind of steer the narrative in my own household. It was just really what changed my perspective is, as I said, case studies and just becoming a lot more knowledgeable on the topic. And throughout those conversations and throughout presenting like my parents with knowledge and the wider Sudanese community with knowledge on it, I could see the narrative shifted a little bit more. And then once you're impacting a small group of people, those small group of people can then impact the wider group of community. So then my parents would speak to the wider community and speak to their friends, and then kind of the word spread that FGM isn't actually permissible in Islam. So yeah, so it kind of started off from there, and I just always persevered. At times it was really hard because you want that support from your own family, and whilst the community or the wider Sudanese community is giving you backlash for all these different things that you're advocating, you want support from your family. But I also know that it isn't their fault. There is kind of values bestowed upon them from generations to come. So I always knew it would be a hard fight, but I think you just really have to kind of believe in your passion and believe in what you're talking about.
That's great, and it's great that you've been able to convince your family and to support that work. That's fabulous. A question about volunteering. How much time do you need to spend volunteering somewhere like Integrate?
So Integrate, the good thing is it's as and when. So when I started off as an outreach worker, it wasn't there was hardly anything. I mean, we would just create like music videos and create resources to spread the word. And then soon schools started picking up on it and started inviting us to come in and deliver talks to teachers and get them trained on FGM and spotting signs. And now it's become such a universal thing that we get asked to come into schools, into law firms, into doctor practices, into different kind of conferences. So you have free will. An opportunity could get offered, and it's very tailored to you. So if you're, for example, the good thing about it is whilst I was in university, for example, if a law firm requested training on FGM safeguarding or sexual harassment in the workplace, for example, it could get offered to myself or another outreach worker who's involved in law. So it then gives you opportunities in your industry. And you could always say, no, I've got too much work on at uni, or I've got too much work on my day job. So all that we ask for really is just that you have a passion to learn, and that you have a passion about the subject, and then opportunities like are come and go, so you can easily say yes or no. So it's got very, very good opportunities. I've been, I mean, all over the world. I've been to Sweden, been back to Sudan, I've been to Africa with Integrate UK, kind of delivering talks, and kind of working with the wider community. So it can give you a lot more opportunities.
Wow, it sounds as if you really put in the miles and the hours in relation to the work that you've done. But it's great that people can tailor it to how much time that they've got available. What we're getting from you, Momin, is that you just have to have that passion.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's I think as well, a lot of people think that you should have extreme passion from the get-go, when that isn't always the case. I mean, sometimes the more you find out about a topic, the more your passion grows. And we always give training to even people who want to be an outreach worker. So people who want to get involved with Integrate, we always give them training sessions, and then it's quite rewarding to see just their passion grow kind of from quite a low level to a high level, where they could even exceed your expectations and be at the forefront of social campaigns.
Fab. Turning then to UE, how did UE help you achieve your goals, law and activism?
So UE was a big helper in terms of achieving what I want to do, both in law and activism, by joining the Law Society and just kind of speaking more and more to my peers and finding out about different opportunities. It really helped me become a lot more knowledgeable in the legal industry. We get taught, obviously, lectures day in, day out on the law, and the law is a very black and white subject, so it seems, especially sometimes the way it's taught, but then it's very nurturing and it's very rewarding to go do volunteering. And I know with law, there's so many opportunities. I mean, you can work with the Avon and Somerset Law Centre, you can work with the Bristol Law Centre, you can even do a lot of work with UE, like street law, sorry. So all the pro bono activities, and it's really helped me get a lot more into law and get a different version of law that I once knew.
There's another popular related question to that. There might be an overlap, but forgive me, I will ask it. Do you feel that becoming educated in law helps you with your activism? Do you feel more empowered to fight for justice?
100%. So my journey into law has been quite a straightforward journey. I've always known I've wanted to do law. Luckily, I know it's some people kind of struggle finding an occupation that they're really interested in, but I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones who have always wanted to get into law. And I feel like the integral part of why I wanted to get into law is witnessing kind of injustices occur in my community. Injustices just occur all over the world, and I knew I always wanted to do more with law. I always wanted to make a difference rather than just go in, do my 9 to 5 and then come home. And that's why I'm always heavy on my activism side of things, because I actually see the difference that it makes. I mean, even with Integrate, I mean, if you think about where we started in just kind of like a classroom sometimes, and then now it's like we've got offices and stuff and going all over the world, it just shows that having a passion for something and having the drive for something, it kind of it can get you to so many places you've never even dreamt of. So yeah, I've always known that I've wanted to do law, and I feel like it's driven my activism tenfold, because I know that this stuff is against the law, and even if it isn't against the law at one point, because I know even in the UK, it wasn't breaking the law if you would take your child to get performed FGM on them and then come back. It wasn't. Now it is breaking the law. So through integrating through kind of realms like that, we managed to change the law, and then in changing the law, you're making society a bit of a different place than it was once.
Well, there's a question here about your music video. You did mention it a little bit earlier on, but the question is, tell us about your music video, please.
So I'm actually not in the music video. I'm not a singer or a dancer or anything like that. I wish, but yeah. So we made. So there was a singer and a rapper who they did it in their free time, and at that point we had to really utilize resources. So anything that we could get to kind of spread the word, I mean, we're down to do. So there was a video called My Clitoris, and even the name is quite striking. So we got a videographer and we made kind of like a spoken word type of song, and then the chorus is like a little bit of a silly song, and then yeah, and then we literally performed it in the streets of Bristol, in kind of like an underground type of look, and then a little bit in like a hall, and then we just merged the videos together. And now once you think of it, now like once how technology's come and even how far we've come, like it kind of it looks, I mean, you can tell it's kind of like a homemade video and whatnot, but it really got the word out there. I mean, it went viral at one point, and that's how Michael Gove became interested in it, the education secretary at the time, and then talks started happening with him. So yeah, it was quite a fun project to kind of be a part of, especially even like behind the scenes and kind of working on like the spoken word aspect and kind of just working. So even if you don't get opportunities of integrate as being on the front line and giving out talks and giving out stuff, whether if you want to get into photography, if you want to get into videography, if you want to even get into production, we've got one of our outreach workers. So we created a video on sexual harassment about a couple of months ago, and he's really into production. So he actually was one of the producers of the video, and he worked with another producer, and they produced the whole video together. So now he can, go out there and say, yeah, I produced a music video, I produced a short film. So it is quite cool. It's got some quite cool projects.
Just out of my question is,
yeah.
When it was being performed on the streets of Bristol, what was the initial reaction to the performance?
So we got quite a few looks, of course, because there was quite a lot of us at the time, and at the time we really wanted to spread the word. So it was those type of things, it was like tell a friend to tell a friend. So we got quite a bit of the community involved, and then there was even some people, kind of like some onlookers, who asked us what it's about, and then even some that actually wanted to join in the music video. So like they'll just be in the back dancing or whatnot, and I think you can see that in the video. But the reaction was, it was a few weird looks, but it kind of breeded, I would say, like speculation and like, oh, what's this about? Or like, what are you guys filming? And it was quite cool to spread the word verbally as well as kind of throughout the form of a creative means.
Fantastic. I think that is all the questions. There is a link there to you and to the work to integrate in the comments box, and also a link to the video. That's great.
Yeah.
So, Momin, it's just left then for me to say a huge thank you. You've been inspirational. It's been an insightful presentation. And it's really awesome to listen to all the hard work and passion that you've put into your work against FGM and social injustice causes. I'm sure everyone in the audience will have learned an awful lot today. Huge thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you. I hope you've all enjoyed, and if you do want to find out more, then just let me know. Thank you so much.